will be keeping tabs on that. Now, the era of state officers and public servants dishing out large sums of cash in harambees has been dealt a blow in the wake of demands for government to crack the whip on officers displaying opulence that fuels plundering of public resources. President William Ruto, in a press briefing, directed the Attorney General Justin Muturi to prepare and submit legislation that will spell out a structured and transparent way for public servants to engage in charitable and philanthropic acts.
No state officer or public servant shall participate in public contributions or harambees going forward.
The announcement by the president comes hot on the heels of complaints by protesters who accused senior government officials and public servants of exhibiting largesse in the public life, oblivious of the suffering of most Kenyans. Henceforth, state officers and public servants will no longer participate in public contributions or harambees, following a directive by the president. Despite the existence of a law barring election candidates from participating in fundraisers 8 months to the general elections, the Attorney General has been directed to come up with legislation that will extend to state and public officers. Contributions in harambees have been perceived to be used by politicians to further political patronage, while senior officials have been accused of looting from public coffers to respond to the demands by the public to participate in harambees. Kenyans who called out the largesse in government attributed patronage to some of the scenes seen on the streets last week, where it is alleged that politicians sponsored criminals to infiltrate the demonstrations, resulting in wanton destruction of property, looting and arson of business premises.
In place of peace, if you deploy violence, you displace the peace. And if you displace the peace, then those that are beholden to the peace will give way. And the dominant then becomes the violence. And the demands as at that time are replaced by the violence.
In the streets of Nairobi, images of hooded individuals bearing big batons claiming to be deployed by business owners keen on protecting their businesses were seen, while in Mombasa, goons descended on business premises, looting while destroying and burning vehicles. These images of looters leaving a supermarket in Rongai were also released by members of the public and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. The scenes begging the question, were the chaos sponsored, and if so, who stood to benefit?
I do think that those that were upset, and I think the entire establishment, the cocktail of that entire establishment were threatened by Gen Zs. Even members of parliament were threatened, the executive was threatened, and the judiciary, because there was some friction with the judiciary at a point. So those part of the judiciary was probably threatened. That's why the language of the opposition was very obviously and overtly supportive.
This is one such image that has sparked controversy as it captures an elected county assembly member from Machakos County in the streets during the protests. A section of politicians have come out to accuse their political nemesis of sponsoring goons to sabotage the demonstrations.
We have observed that the intention of yesterday's well-organized, coordinated and state-sponsored chaos was to undermine and denigrate the Gen Z-inspired nationwide non-violent protest.
Itakuwa ni vibaya katika kaunti zote, wewe tu ndiye gavana unaingia mashinani na kuweza kuinua hamasa ya watoto na kuweza kuongea vibaya.
John Jacob Kuria, Easy Friday.